introduce to you the Senate District Number 4 candidates, incumbent David Haley on my left, and Republican Mr. Joe Ward on my right. And understand, Mr. Ward, you won the coin toss. You have 2 minutes for your opening remarks. Thank you.
I am Joe Ward, and I'm running for the 4th District Senate. I will tell you a little bit about myself since I'm new to the politics game. I'm a 6th-generation Kansan. Our families were in Fort Leavenworth before Kansas was a state. And I was born and raised in Wyandotte County, been involved in sports programs, everything I could to be involved with youth. And I'm a very pro-Wyandotte County guy. I've made this my home. It's going to stay my home. My wife and I are trying to be more involved in the area here to try to benefit everything we can for the people. It's been a great place for us to live. It's been a great place for us to thrive, and our children have done well. And so I've been a business owner since 1995, small business Eagle Security Solutions. I also served on the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department for 31 years. I retired at the rank of Major in 2010, and I believe that I was a very dedicated employee to this community. I believe the taxpayers deserve to get their money's worth, and I believe that I did just that. I worked very hard for the people of this county. My political views, of course, are conservative. I believe in respect for the Constitution, respect for life, believe in limited government, belief in individual responsibility. I'm pro-life, I'm pro-family, I'm pro-Kansas, I'm pro-Second Amendment. If elected, we will support public education with measurable results. We will support fiscal responsibility and eliminate debt. And we will support a business-friendly environment to grow jobs, because we know that the private sector provides 2/3 or more of the jobs in this country. Thank you.
Mr. Haley.
Thank you. I'd like to first thank the Chamber and the many organizations that are sponsoring this event this evening. Mr. Ward and I have not had an opportunity. This is the first opportunity, and we appreciate the time and energy that has gone into putting this together, and also offering it not only to those that are here this evening, but those that will have an opportunity to see it telecast. I also need to apologize for a little stuffiness that the weather has caused in my throat, and hope that I can get through it. I also want to recognize other members of the Wyandotte County delegation who may not be presenting this evening because they have no general opposition. I know that Dr. Valdenia Wynn, who is the Wyandotte delegation chair, is here this evening, and I don't know that I saw any other members of our delegation who don't have opponents. My name is David Haley, and I've been very fortunate to serve first for 12 years in the Senate since 2000, an open seat that was retired by my predecessor, Senator Sherman Jones. Prior to that, I served 6 years in the House, 3 terms in the House. And that is a total of 18 years that I have been in service, in public service, elected here in Wyandotte County. It's been an interesting time in our county's history. We have seen much growth, both small business and, of course, larger businesses in our community. We've seen a change in our county in image during my tenure. We are very proud here in Wyandotte County of some of the growth that has come to this point, and we're looking forward to the growth that will come. I'm a native Wyandotte Countyan, and this is my home. I'm very proud of the many people that are here, and I look forward to having a further discussion as our time ensues. Thank you.
The first question will be for Joe Ward. How would you, or how have you, supported redevelopment of the blighted areas in your district?
Say it again, please.
Okay. how would you or how have you supported redevelopment of the blighted areas in your district?
Well, I spent almost my entire life working at the police department, and most of that attention was paid to the northeast area of this city, which is contained within the 4th Senate District. I worked very closely with neighborhood groups that were there. I worked very closely with the community policing group, who I used extensively to improve quality of life issues. We handled complaints as they came. The officers that I was in charge of at that time, I demanded of them more work, because I told them that they needed to do a quality of life issue every day that they were on the street. And with that, within a 1-year period, we had reduced crime in the East Patrol Division that we're talking about here by 17%. I was very proud of that, and I'm not saying that it was all me as a person, because I had very good supervisors, I had very good officers that were working, and we made a lot of difference in that area of cleaning it up and making it look like a presentable area where people might want to come and visit.
Okay, thank you. Senator Haley, we would ask you the same question. How would you or how have you supported redevelopment of the blighted areas in your district?
What brought me, Mr. Bland, to politics in the first place was fighting to ensure that abandoned houses, those that had the windows and doors knocked out, that we didn't spend more money and that the city didn't spend more money to demolish than to put homes or put people in those homes. Vacant lots do not pay taxes. We have a disproportionate amount then and now of renters that are in the 4th Senate District, and it has always been my push to not necessarily look toward eminent domain as a means by which we can resolve that. Speaking of eminent domain, one of the ways that I did not help blight is when the legislature wanted to change the definition of blight to be any property that could make more money than the taxpayer was currently paying, that we expand that. I voted against that. I was very proud that we did not expand the definition of blight to include properties that could only be a means for government to make more money than the current property. We have placed many people in homes that were previously unoccupied, and the land bank has been a part of that. I was in the House at the time the land bank was passed, which allows those who want to care for properties that have been abandoned and neglected to be able to make application through the land bank, through the city, and to acquire them.
Senator Haley, this is a bit of a follow-up to that question and answer. Do you support the efforts of the local government to get abandoned and/or delinquent properties viable for residency through such tools as the Abandoned Housing Act that I know has been discussed in the legislature?
Well, thank you, Ms. Bynum. Not to sound political, but yes and no. I do support and have supported the adjacent landowner. For example, in the land bank, if the adjacent landowner has been taking care of the property, cutting that grass, what have you, I would hope that that adjacent property owner, provided of course that all property taxes were paid and other provisions, would be able to have the first bite at the apple. There has been, or there was in the legislature this year, and the no part of that is that that if a property was 6 months abandoned, or I'm sorry, 6 months vacant, that it would be considered abandoned. I do not support that. Given the market the way that it is now, there are many properties that are 6 months vacant that don't mean it's abandoned. That other provision would be if they were 2 or more years tax delinquent, it would be considered abandoned. And there are many people who, in my district, may have fallen behind by 2 or more years in taxes and should not, or may actually be living in the house, but that should not be the new definition of abandonment. So in some cases, yes, I have, and in other cases, no, I have not.
Thank you. And Joe, Mr. Ward, how would you or do you support the efforts of local government to get abandoned or delinquent properties viable for residency? And one tool that's been discussed locally is the Abandoned Housing Act, but tell us your answer on that.
The largest issue we have with abandoned properties is the fact that squatters move in, drug dealers move in. They've been declared unfit to live in many cases, they've been declared structurally unsound and have to be demolished. And I think that to have those properties there, which produce no taxes and produce blight because the city can only afford to cut the lots maybe once per year, it creates an environment for kids to get in trouble, creates an environment for adults to sell drugs, it creates an environment for people to take stolen cars into those areas, in the alleys, to strip them, and all in all, it contributes greatly to our crime. The best issue that I can think of is the demolition program that we have. Nothing is demolished unless it meets the criteria for demolition. It has to be a certain percentage where the structure is absolutely unsound before they will take that property down. The problem that we have is if we have a structure that is viable for demolition, they are not being taken down. Many of the property owners are absentee property owners, so it is borne at the cost of our government, and we do not reclaim that. So it's just a total loss. We need to continue with that program. We need to fund it very much, and we need to use it because it improves our neighborhoods.
The next question is for Joe Ward. Have you taken part in any national, state, or local legislative process in any way? And if so, tell us about that experience.
I would like to be able to say that I've taken part in a lot of legislative issues, but being involved with the police department, I was unable to get into those issues by virtue of being told that it was out of my realm of my job. So I've not been involved in many of those. I've worked very closely with many of the departments within our government here locally in order to enact ordinances that were favorable to the police department being able to do their job, reduce crime, reduce blight, and in general improve the quality of life issues for everybody in the city. I think that those issues were important. I've addressed the city commission many times on issues for the police department. I was sent out many times by the chief of police to talk to people about these very issues. So I'm quite familiar with doing it, but as far as being out of the city area, not too much. Hardly anything at the state level, although if asked, I would have done that.
Senator Haley, tell us why you should be the next senator for the 4th District.
Thank you. I've worked very hard during the course of the last 18 years to be accessible. I feel that one of the most important things that any elected official can do is to be accessible to the constituency, not just my immediate constituency in my case, but in this case, Wyandotte County. I dare say that anyone could say that they don't know how to reach me, or that many here or that are watching have not reached me on whatever the concern might be. So first and foremost, I would want to say that many people would say that David Haley has been able to be reached, has been involved in our neighborhood groups, has been involved in community sessions, and continues to be, not just during the election season, but year-round. We have a very busy office in Topeka. We have a busy hotline here that stays busy in season and out. And I don't resolve every issue that I'm contacted about. But I say that, and I think that everyone would say that I do respond, and we do our very best together to meet the constituency concerns, not only in the 4th District, but in all of Wyandotte County.
The next question is for Joe Ward. Joe, what is your position on the Affordable Health Care Act, and what do you support the state of Kansas doing with it? especially in the light of the effect that it may have on business?
Well, I think the Affordable Care Act in its present form is unaffordable for this country. The amount of money, the amount of tax that now they call it, and fees that are going into that are going to run our doctors out of business. I know many physicians, I've talked to several of them, they've told me they're talking about closing their offices and going to work in hospitals so they don't have any overhead, because in fact the expenses, the record keeping, and everything that they're required to do, they are unable to charge enough money and get paid for their services. Most of these individuals are cutting back on their Medicare patients right now. They have not been able to sustain enough profit by dealing with Medicare patients, which hurts everybody in our community. We have many people on Medicare. Medicare is a good program if it's performed properly, but when it's integrated with the Affordable Care Act, it causes great problems. So my position on that is I do not believe Kansas should sign off on the registers, not registers, but the healthcare consortiums where they take in the exchange so they can have different insurance companies bid on it. It's not been a successful program anywhere it's been tried, so I do not think that it is good for America.
Senator Haley, what is your position on the Affordable Care Act as far as Kansas is concerned?
Thank you for the follow-up. I strongly support what has come to be known as Obamacare. And I think that for the citizens of the 4th District and for many in Wyandotte County, that when they really understand what Obamacare means or what the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act means, then to really understand it is to really understand how the quality of life for health access and health care will be enhanced for those who live in Wyandotte County and across the state. I was one of the solo reasons that they did not pass in the Kansas legislature this year something called the Freedom from Health Care Amendment. I stood four square. It's working already. We know that up to 26 years of age now, students can stay on their parents' policy, insurance policies. We know that already pre-existing conditions cannot be a cause for people not having access to health care. The number one reason for bankruptcy in our country, and perhaps in our state, I'm not sure, is due to lingering health care costs. And instead of having all of those patients lined up at KU Med Center with uncompensated care, we should in fact provide a mechanism, and we will, and that the Supreme Court has ruled that it is the law of the land, that we will have the access to that care. We need to expand our Medicare, and that will be the fight in Topeka in 2013 should I return, to ensure that we have that match to meet those federal dollars to care for not only all of Wyandotte County, but those Kansans who cannot afford health access and insurance.
For Joe Ward to answer first. Wyandotte County has been extremely successful in bringing new business and new jobs through the use of economic incentives, such as STAR bonds. Where do you stand on the use of these types of incentives? Do you support their use? Do you believe in another way of bringing business to the state? And if so, what would that be?
First off, I am 100% behind STAR bonds. Wyandotte County would not have anything in the west end of this city if it wasn't for STAR bonds. And it's an economic stimulus that can't be duplicated in many places. So it gives us the opportunity to bring in business when nobody else can qualify. Recently, our corporate tax rates are going down. That is another stimulus thing that is going to help us bring jobs into this state. But the more people we can get to come here, the more private money will come here, and eventually that private money will be in our economy. And I think without the STAR bond stimulus that we've had here, we would not get that growth. The other thing I would like to say is when I look at the 4th District and I ride through it just about every day, look around, see if anything's changed, it's deplorable. I'm so disappointed in what the 4th District looks like. The economic help has not been there. I believe that there is economic help that is available for the 4th District, and if elected, I intend to get economic help for the 4th District. They need a grocery store, we're going to find a grocery store. They need other shopping facilities down there also, and we will find a way to get that done. It just takes work, and I'm a tireless individual when it comes to a task.
Senator Haley, do you want me to repeat that?
I think I have it.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bynum. First of all, the 4th District is not they, Joe, it's we. We are the ones that live in this district, and we have to work together to ensure that it's enhanced. I am one of, and it's interesting that he would make the point that he would about star bonds. He is the fiscal conservative touted, and I claim to be the same, and I voted against star bonds. The star bonds have been, it's a way of picking winners and losers in business. And we could not forego but so much of the sales taxes that we did. Many of us are pleased to see the successes that Star Bonds has brought to the community. Part of the reason that it has become a they versus us is because there has not been unilateral involvement, including many people who live, many small businesses that operate in the 4th District. I don't want to marginalize or divide Wyandotte County, but I do want to point out that had there been an opportunity to have the influx of monies that were made available through the star bonds that came to the western part of our great county, then certainly we would not have many of the problems that we continue to have in the 4th District where we reside. And this is one of the reasons I did not support the star bonds. And I would like to see that we revamp the system so that we don't extend it all out and do without the sales tax revenue that we could.
Gentlemen, we thank you. We now ask you to share with us your final 2-minute closing statement. Senator Haley, if you will go first, please.
Well, I'll conclude where I began. First, thanking you for this time and the opportunity to familiarize ourselves or refamiliarize ourselves with the candidates for the 4th Senate District. It is a privilege for me to serve, and I think that in a few short days or weeks that we should come together and vote. You know, after this election, one of us will be the state senator, and I would hope to be that one. But I want to be, as much as possible, if reelected, the state senator for the entire district. We are a district of divergent views. We are a district of divergent income. And by and large, it is my hope that when David Haley, with your help, is reelected, that I will be the senator for those who represent what Mr. Ward represents, but many of those views that are held by the chamber and not necessarily always many of my constituents, and as much as possible for all of Wyandotte County. This is a wonderful opportunity that you've provided, and my door has been open and my phone will always be both here in Kansas City and if reelected in Topeka, and I thank you for the opportunity.
Mr. Ward?
Well, I do want to thank everybody for attending tonight and the organization of this event. I think that we could probably touch on a few more issues that are really in trouble in the state of Kansas. One being education, where we're spending 63.1% of our total budget trying to educate children. And the unfortunate reality is the scores are a flat line. They have not improved after an infusion of cash over the past 10 to 15 years has been second to none. We had 82% infusion into education, while the cost of living index was 32%. So part of what we're looking at there is we're not getting any bang for our buck. We need improvements in our educational system. We need measurable results. And we need to get a system in place that's going to provide that. We have to have a willingness to work in that area. There's no single bullet that's going to hit this target. I'm telling you, we're going to have to change some laws. We're going to have some ways where parents get to make decisions. And we need to move forward with urgency on this because the education of our youth is vital. Dr. Cindy Lane, I have a lot of respect for our superintendent of schools. She has talked with me many times of implementing trade schools where we can come out with a certificate or a diploma from the community college. The government has given the community college a $2.9 million grant to make sure that our VOTEC education is supported well. And I know that unemployment in Wyandotte County in 2009 was 15, now down to 9%, but the state of Kansas hovering at 6.2. There's some things we need to do in that area, and I think we need to start now.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Appreciate your being with us this evening.